Hello and welcome to Launch Legends. Today we're joined by Jeff Bullas. Pretty much anyone in online marketing space has heard of Jeff. His list of achievements are never ending. Listed on Forbes as one of top 20 marketing influencers. Listed by Inc. magazine as top 20 marketing influencers to follow. #1 global digital marketing influencer. And the list goes on. Jeff currently gets 5 million readers a month on his site. He has around 700,000 Twitter followers. Jeff talks about how he initially just posted great content for years before he picked up traction. He also talks about how and what he would do differently if he was to start everything again. But before, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, rate and review. If you are listening to this on podcast, please rate and leave a review.
Hey, Jeff, thank you for being on the show. So I don't think I need to introduce you too much. Let me just revise that anyway. So top 20 influencers, from Forbes, top 10 influencer of CMOs globally, #1 global digital marketing influencer 2016, and the list just goes on. So we would talk about how you actually got there. But before, I read something about your morning routine when you first started, where you used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and used to work from 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock, where you were just researching and making content. And that's something I'm trying to do myself, where I have a morning routine where as soon as I wake up, first thing in the morning, I spend a couple of hours just researching and coming up with grand ideas before I speak to my team and actually get going with all day to day. So let's talk about that. How did that go and how did it actually start?
Yeah, well, when I started the blog in 2009, which is 11 years ago now, it seems like just yesterday, but also seems like a long time ago. And that was when social media was, just starting out. Really, Facebook only had 50 million users. So the idea was about, and came out of a book by called The New Rules of Marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott, and he talked about a new concept, which is creating online content to actually start or grow a business. So I decided to test that insight about the power of content in a digital world. And so in March 2009, observing people's obsession with social media and David Meerman's observation, insights about using content to start a business, I started the blog. So I started writing about social media, my observations about it. So just before I started, I actually wasn't working. So, but when I started a day job, and that started at 9, worked to 5 or 6. And the only time I had to create content was to get up early. So for 4 years, when I was working for that company, I got up at 4:30 a.m., was at my desk by 5:15, and just started creating content. So I'd research, read, write, craft, then promote, send out the emails, send them out on social media, send it out on Twitter. So in those 4 years, I created a lot of content, and that's when, Google was more organic, Facebook was organic. The timing was great because back then the algorithms were working for the content creators, without paying for it. Whereas today, that's changed quite a lot as the big platforms start to charge you to reach your audience. So the routine was very much one of getting content and being consistent in the creation. So essentially I was getting out 5 blog posts a week for 4 years. And did it work? Absolutely. So I learned a lot. And by reading and writing, the whole confusion of what was happening in social media, writing for me was a great way to distill that noise and information overload into something simple like 600-700 words every day, because when you're writing, you're trying to put it into a structure that will make sense to as many people as possible, because you've got to put yourself in the reader's shoes going, can I write something that will get a main message across? Will it be interesting? Will it be clear? Will it have clarity? Will it have simplicity? Will it have structure? So that's what the routine was. And then it was the day job. So the routine's a bit different now because I got myself slowly fired by that job because I was ended up speaking overseas, and I started to actually take leave without pay from the company. They sort of said to me, well, we're not really that interested in selling our stuff, because I was selling, websites and e-commerce stores and running workshops for them. And they went, well, we're going to cut you down to 3 days a week, Jeff. I went, oh, really? So then they cut me down to 2, and then eventually they basically put me on as a contractor running workshops a few hours a week. So I sort of got so busy and distracted with my own passion project, which was jeffbullas.com, I got myself slowly fired. So and when I finished up, it was ready to just as a business. I already had revenue. So it was a side hustle. And I think it's the lowest risk business I've ever started. And here we are still today. So, yeah.
So let's go back. So how long were you in the routine for before you actually started? 4 years.
Yeah, wow. 4 years. So I was on a mission. I'm sort of trying to tap it. Look, for me, the question still is that tapping it was almost like tapping into an energy source. I don't know where it came from, but I was on a mission. And as they say in the Blues Brothers movie, a mission from God. I don't know, but a mission. So the mission was just to, I suppose, I saw the power of social media to get your voice out to the world, and I saw how that could be done, and I learned along the way, and it worked, and yeah, I liked the attention too. I started getting invited to speak all around the world, and people paid me to speak, and it was just amazing. If you told me 11 years ago that would have happened, I would have. The actuality went way beyond my wildest dreams in terms of what happened. So it was a burning, passionate purpose, and it came out of my reading. It came out of the writing, and then came out of the experimentation. So yeah.
Jeff, let's go back. When you said you were doing that thing for 4 years, where you were writing 5 blog articles a week. How long before, during those 4 years, you started to see real traction?
I suppose 6 to 9 months in, Social Media Examiner sort of put me on a list of was a finalist for one of their top social media influencers, creators of blogs on the planet. And then we were actually put on the list by Social Media Examiner a year later. So about 6 to 9 months in, we started to get traction. And it was about a year in that I got invited to go to New Zealand and do my first paid speaking gig, run a workshop for Johnny Hendrickson in his basically golf resort just outside Christchurch. So 6 to 9 months, but I was relentless. I essentially was writing a lot, promoting a lot, building my Twitter following, and also quite often in business, the major factor in business for success is timing. So, and I ended up with the start of social media and also the rise of the democratization of the smartphone, the iPhone. So this was a perfect storm. And also it was a time when you could get organic reach and build authority quickly across social media and on Google. And as we know today, there's so much more noise, and it's really, really hard to cut through now. So we're moving from organic into the world of you have to be really, really good at paid digital advertising to get attention. Organic is hard to do unless you're a celebrity.
Right. So let's go back to the first 6 months. Apologies. Right now, there's a blueprint for building a profile online. A lot of people have done it. Back then, it was not that big. Not many people were doing it. What kept you going for the first 6 months? How did you know that it was going to work? Or it was just passion? You thought, you know what, forget it. If it works,
it was just passion, and I saw my website numbers start to increase traffic. I saw my Twitter followers start to increase. And what I loved about social media was that it was the Wild West, where you actually were like meeting your tribe from all around the world, people that were as passionate, as interested in social media as you were. And I remember, I was writing at night for a while until I switched to the daytime early morning routine. And I could see America wake up as Twitter became busier and busier. And when I started on Twitter, there was only 5 million people on Twitter. There's about 330 million today. Wow. So literally, it was just I started to get feedback reinforcing what I was doing was working. I got some more attention. And as humans, we all have a little narcissistic streak. Some have more than others, and I won't mention names. But, a little bit of narcissism is good as long as it's healthy in terms of, a little bit of attention. So I was getting some attention. It was working. So I kept going. So it was the feedback loop. And what's great about social media, especially back then, was you could put information out and you could feel it, people would respond. So, and then they'd give you feedback and comments. So you were making your own small change to the world, and then the people were actually coming back and feeding back to you, and they were changing you. So it was almost like this virtuous loop of evolution and watching what worked and what didn't as you fed content into the world on social media, on blog. And I could see it working. So I was encouraged and I doubled down. I said, I really this is going somewhere. And I said, I can really make something out of this. And that's what happened.
Great. So, back in the days, like you said, Wild West, where things were quite wide open, where you could build something very quickly and the feedback loop was very quick as well. Now there's a lot of noise. There's a lot going on. If you were to start doing the same thing all over again, how would you do
it? The way I'd do it today would be still start a blog, still create content. But then I think you'd have to really double down on getting that content out through influencers. You'd have to get good at doing Facebook targeted advertising, maybe using Facebook video ads. Then you would need to repurpose content as well. And that's part of what I doubled down on recently was I launched the Jeff Bullas Show podcast just in March. And the idea of video and recording it in audio as well. And then after that, you can turn that into a transcript using rev.com. So you can end up repurposing, creating a lot of content quickly. And also the competition. So the competition in podcasting isn't as strong because podcasting is where blogging was 10 years, whereas there's over 1 billion bloggers on the planet. So the podcasting area for me is actually, I think, would be a place I'd recommend for people to get involved with. The challenge with podcasting is that it's not as easy to do as just writing a blog post because it's there's a lot of moving parts. The sound quality, video quality, you've got to have editing done. And then you've got to repurpose all the content. So, and I put off the podcast for about 3 or 4 years. What would I do? You've got to create content. You've got to work out a media format that I think you're comfortable with, and that could be video, it could be audio, be relentless, and then you've got to be really good at distributing. So it's really just 2 things. Number 1 is creating the content. Number 2 is distributing the content. And a lot of the models early on were leap in, start creating, give away a lot of content for free, build an audience, and then work out how to make money out of it. So, and essentially it hasn't changed. It's just more difficult to do. And as we all know, we're now battling the algorithms of Facebook and Twitter that will just remove your visibility because they want you to pay. That's their model. So you can't fight City Hall. You've really got to double down and get smarter at paid digital marketing and advertising.
Great. Okay. So my question there is, okay, fine. Starting a podcast is a great thing. I'm doing the same thing as well. It's hard. So you actually have to get loads of people to actually come and talk to you as well. That's okay too. But even then, there's so much content being created at this point where it's very hard to compete among the noise. Is there any other way, maybe going multilingual, maybe targeting different audiences, untapped audiences?
I think that you've got to experiment with a whole range of things. people like Neil Patel basically he's got the resources to actually get a lot of his blogs translated into different languages. Not everyone's got those resources. Then there's, basically guest writing for other influencers or people that are authorities in your space. I think it's really important to pick a niche that's actually in growth. I think that's really important. There's less competition, and I think micro niches are actually really important as well. So, yes, there's an incredible amount of noise. It is difficult to do, but you have to be relentless, and you really need to be multi-channel in your distribution and also in your media content creation. So you've just got to experiment with a whole range of channels, and also when you find ones that work, is double down on those.
Yeah. I think the main thing is just keep going. That's probably the best advice you can give someone. Be relentless and just keep doing it. Eventually, it's going to work. It might be harder.
Well, it's harder, but that's the reality. But persistence is very, very important. And you speak to any entrepreneur, and you've been through the journey of what you've told me about, the startups you've been through. It's just relentless persistence and picking yourself up when you hit a roadblock. And essentially, you just got to keep going and keep testing. Throw a lot of stuff against the wall, see what works, what sticks. And it's not all going to work. In fact, a lot of it won't. So and you've got to be, I think what's also important is to be passionate about the area you're in, because to keep going, you need that energy that to get you out of bed, to keep you going each day. So I think a passionate purpose, the why you're doing this is really, really important.
Great. So imagine someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, they're going to build their audience as well to Jeff's level. By the way, how much traffic do you get on your website and how many Twitter followers?
We get around about 5 million visitors a year. So, yeah.
Right. How many Twitter followers?
We've got about 650,000, something like that. Yep.
Great. So imagine someone's listening to this and it's like, okay, I want to get to Jeff's level in a few years' time. And he starts doing what were you saying? Like, be persistent with the content, keep producing great content, and just trying out different channels. But then he's thinking, okay, how do I make money after all that? How did you start to make money, and what's the course?
I started to get paid for speaking, so that was the first revenue stream. Mm-hmm. Then I experimented with doing consulting, and I realised I don't really enjoy this. Also, the problem with consulting is it's hard to scale. Mm. So the next step after that was as we were identified as being, I became an influencer in my industry in digital marketing and social media marketing and digital entrepreneurship, in that we do campaigns, especially for a lot of software as a service type companies globally, to reach the small to medium business owners, because that's our audience. And then we boost that with paid Facebook video ads that we've discovered work, different types that we've discovered work well over the years. And also using our organic distribution on social media, our email list, Facebook Messenger. And then the other thing we're doubling down on now is on the Jeff Bullas Show podcast is to actually have some more fun. And I think the other important thing I love about the podcast is it's the relationships you have after sitting down with someone for a while, 40-minute chat, whatever, 30 minutes, an hour chat. And I'm just enjoying the relationships that have been built out of that. And as we all know, happiness comes out of good relationships, and also relationships are basically where business success rises from as well. So happiness comes from great human relationships.
You're right.
After you earn a certain amount of money, then you won't be happier because you earn more money. You're happier because you've got better relationships.
You're right. I mean, starting this podcast is probably one of the best things I've done in my career. The kind of people I've been able to talk to is just amazing. And you just learn so much just by talking to them. And then you're right, you build a relationship and then you just keep talking to them after the podcast as well. It's great for building relationships. It's great for creating content. And actually, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you as a podcast host. it's a win for the guests where, as a podcast host, you're promoting them, and then it's a win for the audience. So
Yep.
I don't see anything that's better than this when it comes to creating content. So that's great.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Go on.
Yeah. So for us, it's a term that's used for podcasts, especially doing interviews, is actually called the Oprah effect, is where you shine a light on someone else. It's all about, the guest. And then we actually then boost the attention. So we created a YouTube channel, which we record in video as well. And we boost that. And we're getting, most of our videos now, since we started the channel and boosting it, up 5,000 plus views. So and then the guest is really happy because we give them attention. We're shining a light on them, and and then building a relationship as well. It's very cool. I'm having a ball doing the Jeff Bullas show. We're learning a lot still, but the agony of putting it together initially and all the moving parts is now a process. And as we know, whether you're a startup, whether it's a solid business, it processes and procedures and systems that become absolutely core and key.
Great. So one last question. You gave some great advice. What's the one advice you would give to someone who's just starting out or who's struggling in the beginning?
Number one, work out why you want to do what you want to do. I think, and your passionate purpose is going to be the intersection of both your experience, your expertise, and your innate ability. Mm-hmm. I think you've got to start with that. If you're going to head out and just to make money, I think that's a tough gig. And I've started businesses about just to make money, and I pick the trends right. But for me, make sure you've got a passionate purpose. Number two, business is also a team game, and you will have to do most of the stuff yourself early. But after that, then you need to put in place systems and procedures and persist. And work on the business, not just in it.
Great. Jeff, thank you very much. Thank you for being on the show, and I hope I'll see you again. Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.